Welcome to part 2 of the Oscar predictions. This is about acting category nominees. If you haven't listened to part 1, make sure you go back and listen to part 1 first about Best Picture, Best Director. There may be some stuff that I say there and explain deeper into what I'm thinking about some of these movies that I may not say here because it'd be repetitive. And so it gives a lot of context into why I'm picking what I'm picking for the acting category nominees. Also, if you get the Best Picture nominees wrong, you're probably going to get the acting category nominees wrong because last year 80% of the acting category nominees came from Best Picture nominees. So if you get the Best Picture nominees wrong or you're way off on that, then it's fruit from the poison tree in all the acting categories, the technical categories, because a lot of that is filled up by the Best Picture nominees. If a movie gets in for Best Picture, that probably means they'll just put it down for almost every category. Maybe they haven't seen some of the other movies. And so I'm considering that when I'm doing this list here. So let's start with Best Actor. Best Actor is two races at one time. There's the people I feel really good about. You never want to say guarantee, but there's 3 slots that I feel really good will be nominated, and then there's 2 slots that are wide open to anybody. Number 1, and pretty much probably going to be nominated unless something drastic happens, would be Tom Cruise and Digger. Tom Cruise is overdue. The last 2 Best Actor winners weren't people that were overdue. It was Michael B. Jordan in Sinners, who's still pretty young, and then the year before that, you had Adrian Brody, who had already won for The Pianist. The main competition for Cruise is going to be other people that feel overdue that have never won before, but Tom Cruise certainly, no matter who controls Warner Brothers at the time that Digger comes out, I think a lot's going to go into that campaign because Paramount, run by David Ellison, which I hope that they're not able to acquire Warner Brothers, but if they are able to, Ellison knows Cruise from the Mission Impossible movies. Skydance was one of the production companies that worked on those movies, so they have a relationship. I think a lot's going to go into this campaign regardless of what's going on with Warner Brothers. And Cruise is big enough that he doesn't really need a top-tier campaign, and Digger, I think, will be big enough that enough people will see it. It won't really matter what's going on. He's ugly, he's got a bald cap on, a beer belly, it's an Oscar bait movie. It's his first attempt at acting in an Oscar movie in over a decade. He's mostly makes action movies now. I don't even think he's really been concerned with this since the early Double O's. It's the last time he even really did movies like this. So it'll be like Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer, where a very big commercial actor goes back into real work, and then probably the second this is over, he'll go back to blockbusters and never do another real movie again. But anyway, number 2 is Matt Damon in The Odyssey. I'm actually surprised that I don't see more people picking him because this feels like a no-brainer. Matt Damon is very well liked within the industry. He's very popular. He's got a great reputation. The Odyssey is almost certainly going to be nominated for Best Picture. Most acting category nominees will come from Best Picture nominees. Damon is somebody that just has a great reputation in Hollywood. Everybody likes working with him. He's very popular within the industry. Even movies like Invictus or The Martian were those great performances. I don't know if I'd put those in my top 5 Matt Damon performances, but he was still able to get nominated just because he's a likable guy. And here he is front and center in a big epic movie that's almost certainly going to be nominated for Best Picture. So number 2, I would say, would be Matt Damon. And I also wouldn't be surprised if this was Tom Cruise's major competition this year for Best Actor, because people might also feel Damon is overdue in the acting categories. He's won for screenplay, but not for acting. Number 3, I think, is John Malkovich for Wild Horse 9. This is somebody who hasn't been nominated in decades. He's got 2 previous Oscar nominations, but he's never won. Most people kind of have written his career off for this century after being John Malkovich. Was the last time there was a lot of heat even set on his name in terms of the Oscar race. But I think him being front and center with Wild Horse 9, a lot of people think, oh, this is a good comeback performance for him. You have to think that his odds are pretty good. But then we get to the 4th and 5th slots, which I want to spend a lot of time on because there's 2 people that people are saying, and I hear their names all the time, they don't feel right to me. And that's Sebastian Stan for Fjord. And I talked a little bit yesterday about the Best Picture race and why I don't think Fjord will be as big a deal as it could be, and Ryan Gosling in Project Hail Mary. With Sebastian Stan, I think the movie is going to be seen as sympathetic to child abusers and him being the child abuser. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing that the Oscars would want to reward. They like villains, but sometimes more in the supporting categories than the main categories. Javier Bardem and No Country for Old Men, they go along with that, but somebody beating their kids, I don't know. That could be queasy. The overall movie may not be that popular, although I still like his odds better than Ryan Gosling in Project Hail Mary, which doesn't feel right for an Oscar movie at all to me in terms of the performance that he gives. I don't see him doing a ton of different stuff than he normally would do, and just because he's on screen by himself for a lot of the movie, that doesn't always impress the Academy. There's been movies in the past where they thought that would be a big deal, and it didn't wind up being a big deal. Also, if they got in, that would be 5 previous nominees in Best Actor, meaning that all 5 slots would be occupied by people that have been nominated before, and the Oscars doesn't really work that way. It doesn't usually go for people just because they've been nominated before. They like to let new people into the club, so to speak. Last year, Michael B. Jordan won. That was his first nomination ever. Jessie Buckley won. That was her first nomination ever. A couple years ago, Cillian Murphy won with his first nomination. Brendan Fraser won with his first nomination. You see where I'm going with this. It doesn't always pay to have been nominated previously. People like to spread the wealth around. So then you get into, well, if not them, then who? And then the next most likely that I see people predicting is a quintet of biopics that I don't like at all for different reasons. Jafar Jackson for Michael, I went into that yesterday and how ridiculous I think people even making that movie and be like Cosby the early years and doing his first year as a stand-up and nothing else, and then having his son play him, and the whole reason the movie exists is to whitewash his legacy. So I don't really like Jafar Jackson and Michael at all. Then you have Robert Aramayo for I Swear, which is a movie that has already been out. He won the BAFTA last year for his I Swear performance, and I think it would be too long in the tooth. I think everybody's going to say, well, didn't we already see this? Hadn't this come out? Didn't we watch this a long time ago? So I don't like his odds that much more than I like Jackson's odds. Then you have Robert Pattinson for Primetime, where it's, I guess, theoretically possible, but the Academy has been very cool towards this subject matter. They didn't go for Predators in last year's Best Documentary Feature. It's basically the same story. They didn't like Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler, which is, again, could be perceived as a similar story to Primetime. It's about the Dateline How to Catch a Predator specials. Pattinson's character won't be the most likable person depicted in this movie, and I don't know if they would really go for that. I think his odds are better in the supporting categories. Next is Dominic Sessa for Tony, which I don't think is going to get there because this is an Anthony Bourdain biopic, but not the interesting part of his life. Not like the part where he's going around the world and he's interviewing people from different cultures and being like, hey, we can bond and share food, bringing the world together. That would be a popular story with the Academy. This isn't about any of that. This is his very, very early years beginning in the restaurant business, and the movie just doesn't really look Oscar worthy or material wise to me. A trailer has been released. I would be very surprised if that got through. Then you have the main guy in I Play Rocky, which I don't really see that. I know Hollywood is very nostalgic for itself and the story of Rocky and all that, 50th anniversary, sure. I don't really see that. The person that might have a better chance is Hans Zischler for Fatherhood, but I talked about this yesterday where releasing the movie makes me question it because they had a lot of misses in the last couple of years. I know The Substance got through, but a lot of stuff that was supposed to get through, like Jennifer Lawrence and Die My Love, or some other things that seemed kind of undeniable at the time, they just flamed out. And a lot of their movies just don't go anywhere. They don't really know how to push them as hard as they could. And the fact that it's a German language performance. For a lot of the foreign language performances, which I think we'll see one or two in the actress category, it's kind of hard for them to get nominated because when Parasite won, they're like, there's a 1-inch barrier at the bottom of the screen. It's called subtitles. And once the audiences get past that, then they can experience so many great stories. Well, the thing that mostly would get them involved in a great story is a very charismatic actor, somebody kind of young, kind of sexy, and you see that a lot with the foreign language performances that are nominated, like Renata Rinsky for Sentimental Value or Wagner Moura for The Secret Agent. It's somebody kind of charismatic, can relate to American audiences that they've seen before and some other stuff that they like looking at, and I don't know if that's Zischler, plus the fact that Fatherland is shorter than 85 minutes long. I don't think this is going to be as big a contender as people are predicting that it could be. If you don't like them, what about Brad Pitt for The Adventures of Cliff Booth? You're predicting that for a Best Picture nomination, and then Timothée Chalamet for Dune Part 3. You're predicting that for a Best Picture nomination. Most actors will come from Best Picture nominees. I think they have issues. Brad Pitt, he's already won an Oscar for this part. He's probably not doing anything new here from the first time he played Cliff Booth, so sequels can often have a really hard time getting through. Same thing for Timothée Chalamet. He has a little bit better chance, probably is showing a range from what he did in the first two movies as an older version and a cynical version of the same character, but there seems to be a resistance to Chalamet. Last year, there were articles written about him and about the backlash, and they organized against him to reward Michael B. Jordan. I mean, it was Chalamet's Oscar to lose for Marty Supreme, and he lost it, and there seemed to be a real to hell with this guy sentiment, so you have to wonder how likely are people to put his name down. Then you say, well, okay, but what do you like? You're ruling out all these people, and it's kind of process of elimination. I could see Ethan Hawke in The Wait. I could see John Turturro in The Only Living Pickpocket in New York. These are older actors that are very well respected and people like them in movies that people have seen. Both of those movies have either 100% or close to it on Rotten Tomatoes, so movies that have actually been watched and people know that they're good. I could see that. I could see Kelvin Harrison in Samo Lives. It's a biopic. Pedro Pascal in Behemoth. These are slightly younger actors. I know Pedro's not that young, but young-ish for the Best Actor race, and then to add some diversity to the race. Adam Driver in Paper Tiger, or Josh O'Connor in Jack of Spades. The alliterative names, those are two younger actors that are well thought of. O'Connor has not been nominated before. Driver is well thought of, even though he's been nominated before, so that could happen. Aaron Taylor Johnson in Werewolf. He's never been close to the Oscar conversation. He's never been nominated. They might like to do a first-time nominee, especially if his role is as big and juicy and exciting as people may think it could be. Andrew Garfield could be nominated for either Artificial or Uprising. If they don't put Artificial in 2027, he could be nominated for both of them. Technically, now that they've changed the rules and an actor can compete against himself, he's the only one that I even see even being a possibility to compete against himself for these two lead roles in movies. How do we break it down? How do we decide who to go with? Well, Ethan Hawke in The Wait, I think, could be hampered by the distributor. I think he definitely could get in. I mean, he got in last year for a part that a lot of people weren't really predicting, so you don't want to make the same mistake twice. Then again, does history repeat itself? Not usually. They might like an actor with no nominations previously. So with Ethan Hawke in The Wait, the distributor, and the fact he just got nominated again, people may go away from that. Pedro Pascal in Behemoth, I went into yesterday why Searchlight isn't the Oscar behemoth that it once was, and it's diminished. They're going to be putting all their chips into Wild Horse 9. They may not have a lot left over for a big campaign for Behemoth and to get him through. Then you have Josh O'Connor and Jack of Spades. Could definitely happen, but people were predicting him last year for Mastermind. Mastermind is another movie distributed by a movie that went nowhere, and I heard all kind of talk about Josh O'Connor for Mastermind, Josh O'Connor for The History of Sound, Josh O'Connor for Knives Out 3. Just because he wasn't nominated last year doesn't mean he won't be this year in a bigger part, more front and central to a bigger movie. But with Jack of Spades yesterday, I talked about they don't have a distributor yet. Not a lot is known about that movie because there's been so little details come out about it, and it may not even come out this year. I don't feel comfortable picking him. These possible category nominees, though, I mean, it could be any of these people. This is 8 names that it technically could be, and it wouldn't shock me if it was any of these 8 people, which is kind of a broad range. I don't like to do that to people. Out of just kind of drawing names from a hat in process of elimination, and it very well could be Kelvin Harrison in Samo Lives. I'm kind of ruling him out only because of the distribution factor and the fact not a lot of people know about that movie. It wouldn't shock me if Kelvin Harrison came out of nowhere and snagged that spot. But I'm going to say John Turturro, The Only Living Pickpocket in New York, because it's a movie that people have seen. It's got a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. He's never been nominated before. There's going to be a big push. Sony Pictures Classic. If they don't do the dumb thing and split their resources between Aramayo for I Swear and Turturro for The Only Living Pickpocket in New York, if they don't split those resources and they go all in on Turturro, I think they could get him through. And then I'm just going to say Andrew Garfield for Uprising could just as easily be Artificial if it comes out this year, but I'm just going to say him for Uprising because he's a younger actor, he's well thought of, people like him, and the fact that he's got 2 big movies coming out this year, that he's front and center on 2 Oscar bait movies that could potentially be part of the conversation, I think that will help him get to that 5th place slot. But it's more of a cumulative effect for a great year, which we're going to see that in the supporting races all up and down. But that's what I'm thinking for the Best Actor race. Those last 2 slots are just guesses. It really could be any one of 10 names. For the Best Actress race, it's a completely different race because with Best Actor, we've got 3 that I'm pretty good about and then 2 wide open slots that could go to any one of a dozen names. With Actress, it's really more like 12 potential nominees, and I'm not that confident about any of them. So it's fewer total possibilities. More movies are male-driven this year. They have more of a male lead than a female lead, but I'm not feeling great about any one specific nominee. So this is kind of unusual too, in that there could be all European actresses as the nominees. It could be 5 European actresses and no American possibilities, because out of the possible 12, 7 are European actresses, only 5 are American, and the 5 Americans seem shakier than just about any combination of the European actresses. So let's talk about the European actresses. Sandra Huller in Rose or Fatherland, and the rules have changed where she technically could be nominated for both. I would be surprised if that happened. These are 2 foreign language movies. They're both black and white movies. I don't think either one of them will be nominated for Best Picture. It's probably not going to get her for both of them, but I think a consensus will emerge towards the end of the year about which of these movies are stronger. I think it would be Rose because the part is just very unusual. It could translate better. She's already won an award for the Berlin Film Festival. Well, who won Best Leading Actor in the Berlin Film Festival last year? Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You. That was that movie's only nomination, but her lead performance was seen as so undeniable that she got into the Best Actress race. I think the same thing could happen for Sandra Huller in Rose. Don't rule out Fatherland, but I'm just thinking it could be more Rose than Fatherland. Then you have Sophia Okinoto in Clarissa. I predicted this movie yesterday for Best Picture. This is the title character. It's a big part. She's well thought of, but hasn't been in the conversation for a couple decades. It's a big, juicy comeback role, and I think the fact that last year's Best Actress race had no non-white nominees, it was 5 white women. It is almost every year, and you have to wonder how many years can the Academy do that. Black women are not just in the supporting category, they can lead a movie as well. This seems like the best bet for a black actress to be nominated, so I'm predicting Sophie Okinoto in Clarissa. And then you have Virginie Efira in All of a Sudden, which again, I talked about that as being my pick for the foreign language movie that will break through and possibly get nominated for Best Picture this year. She's been a big actress in France for a long time. She's never been nominated for an Oscar. She's a pretty famous name in France. This could be her breakthrough role with the Academy. Sandra Huller did only a few years ago, so this could be Efira's year. Then we get to ones that I'm ruling out, but they are possible. These are other European actresses that I don't really like their chances that much, but they're definitely possible. Renata Rinsby for Fjord. Everybody's predicting this. She has a huge online following. I think only Charles Melton has a bigger online following. A lot of people are putting him for Saturn Return in the supporting actor category. I don't really like that, but I think because a lot of people like her online, it maybe boosts her chances more than they really are. We talked a lot about the problems with Fjord yesterday. I think her chances are probably better than anywhere else because Sebastian Stan, if he is the child abuser and she's more conflicted, like she's kind of defending him, but also maybe a little more torn, that may make her a little bit more sympathetic. But if people don't like the movie itself that much, it may not be enough. So she definitely could, and most people are putting her as in their top 5, and maybe that's smart to do that. Maybe I'm dead wrong, but I'm not predicting her. Then you have Cynthia Erivo in Prima Facie. This is one of those parts that I think the whole movie is going to be structured around just her performance. That does work in Best Actress sometimes. Obviously, it worked with Rose Byrne and If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You last year, but there's only so much of that you can have. I don't think the movie will be nominated for Best Picture. I don't think it will get in hardly anywhere else. A lot of the times, these single performance movies in a year where there's competition or there's any kind of more overall consensus, you'll have somebody in a weaker performance but a better movie that the Academy has seen overtake that from somebody. And she was predicted a lot last year for Wicked Part 2, and that didn't happen. This may not happen either. Ruth Madeley for Being Human. I could see this happening. I talked about yesterday, Apple has no other real contenders. They're going to put a lot into Being Human because they literally have nothing else that they even really could put up there. So there could be a big push for this, and it could be a sentimental favorite. It could be one of those that touches people in such a way that it breaks through. I'm not predicting it, but I think it's very possible. More possible than some people are saying. When I see her name in the list, she's not even in the top 10 most of the time. She's like way off in the possibilities. I would put her more as the 6th or 7th possibility. I think it's more likely than people are pretending it is right now. Not a lot of people thought Coda had a shot in hell, and then it got through. So this could be the same thing. Daisy Edgar Jones in Sense and Sensibility, I don't think is going to happen because it's a very standard remake of this material that we've seen before. I don't think it's anything special. And if she were nominated, it would be more likely in supporting actress for A Place in Hell, which I think is going to get a little bit more attention. So let's get down to the American possibilities, of which there are only 5. And I really want to rule out one kind of immediately, which is Zendaya for the drama. Came out in April. People have already seen it. If she did get nominated, that was the movie's only nomination. You kind of need a bigger movie that everybody's still thinking about, still talking about, to push an acting winner through the first 6 months of the year. And I don't think that's going to happen. So let's talk about the 4 that do have a good chance. That would be Michelle Williams in A Place in Hell, Julianne Moore in No One Cares, Mikey Madison in The Social Reckoning, and Scarlett Johansson in Paper Tiger. I think Johansson will get put into the supporting actress category, and that may be category fraud. She may have a way bigger role than supporting, but I think it's smarter for them to do that. If she tries to go up for actress, she might come up short. She may not be nominated, but in the supporting category, I think she could not only be nominated, but possibly win. Can she win in the actress category? Probably not. So I would be shocked if they don't decide this and push her for supporting. Neon did the same thing last year with Stellan Skarsgård. They looked around at the actor race and thought, well, he's a supporting actor because we need him to be because it's better for the movie itself. I don't know why they wouldn't do that again this year. That would leave Mikey Madison in The Social Reckoning, Julianne Moore in No One Cares, Cares, and Michelle Williams, A Place in Hell. Two of these last slots are going to go to two of these actresses. Who do you pick? Who do you go with? Whoever is not picked, I think there's going to be a lot of snub articles, and that may be Michelle Williams for A Place in Hell, because the exact same release date as A Place in Hell, Baby Girl came out Christmas Day. That was another corporate thriller. That was one that a lot of people thought was going to break through because it was about sexuality and it had a big juicy part for Nicole Kidman, and not enough people seemed to like the subject matter for it to break through. It should have. I think she should have been nominated, and she wasn't. Last year we saw Tessa Thompson and Hedda and Jennifer Lawrence and Die My Love. This could be the same thing where it's a big juicy dramatic part as somewhat of an anti-heroine or somebody not totally likable. They're just being something that resists picking her. Mikey Madison for The Social Reckoning, that could be a big mistake because the part could be dry. She won for Honora only 2 years ago, and again, they don't like to really go back to the same winners kind of over and over again, especially when they're pretty young and they think like, well, we're just going to nominate her for whatever movie she's in. I mean, she's barely done anything outside of the nominations. But I think because Social Reckoning will be nominated for Best Picture and there'll be a big campaign behind it, and she's the heroine. She's the one that we're supposed to relate to, and then Mark Zuckerberg is probably more the villain. That could push her over. That seems more right to me. Julianne Moore for No One Cares. This is a movie we don't know a lot about. Nobody has really seen it. That's the thing with the Oscar race. People are parsing through the leaves like, oh, I saw a tweet about this movie and therefore I don't think it's a contender. Nobody's really seen it. There's been some test screenings. This is the kind of part and character that would be nominated, where she's a regional actress, I guess an amateur actress in some way. She goes into a regional theater production. She becomes obsessed or enamored with the director of that, or he has some kind of bizarre sway over her or gets something out of her. Somebody later in life discovering an artistic talent, blossoming on stage and really blooming. Feels more like the kind of movie that the Oscar people would go for. So I'm going to pick Mikey Madison for The Social Reckoning and Julianne Moore for No One Cares. I'm going to say Renata Rinsby for Fjord and Michelle Williams for Place in Hell could be this year's snubs. Wouldn't surprise me at all if that weren't true and they got through, but that's just where I'm going with this. Supporting actor, there's fewer overall possibilities. Like, I don't think there's as many possibilities for it as there was for actor or actress. In my opinion, about 9, 10 good contenders, and then it's just a free-for-all. Any combination of those 10 people in those 5 slots could be possible. Although it used to be more than that. Daniel Craig for Narnia, he's never been nominated before, but that movie got pushed to 2027, so that took one out of the race. And especially Guy Pearce for Ink, where he plays Rupert Murdoch. Do I think the Academy would have missed the chance to take a dump on Rupert Murdoch? No, I don't. I think that definitely would have got in. So those two moving to 27, that now puts it more as like 10 possible contenders. And who do you go with? I see a lot of people say John Goodman, Digger, Steve Buscemi, Wild Horse 9, Sam Rockwell, Wild Horse 9, Jeremy Strong, The Social Reckoning, and Paul Giamatti for No One Cares. Now that lineup is so good and so strong and feels right in so many ways, I can just about guarantee you that that won't be the lineup, because that would make so much sense. And for a category as wild as Best Supporting Actor, which is always harder to pin down, the supporting actor categories are always tougher to predict. And to basically know the 5 nominees in May, that probably ain't going to happen. So who are the others that I'm looking at? Well, I've kind of ruled him out, but Tom Holland for The Odyssey is possible, theoretically possible, because it's a big movie. If you think that's the front runner for Best Picture, any person in that movie is a possibility, but I don't like Tom Holland's acting, so that could be just me and a me thing. I've kind of ruled him out for that reason. I talked about Charles Melton for Saturn Return. I think he has a bigger online following than he might for this movie, and you always see people stumping for him. Young women especially really love this guy. I don't know if that would translate to an Academy bid. Channing Tatum for Josephine, I could see him being nominated. I'm only ruling him out because the distributor is so weak. Sumerian Records is now trying to be a movie distributor. Josephine will be their first movie ever. It's very unlikely that they can get nominated for anything. It takes distributors years before they understand what they're doing. Mubi distributed movies for about 5 years before they got any traction on the Oscar race. Netflix, it took them a few years. I mean, it takes a while. There's a learning curve. It's kind of unlikely that distributors come out and they've never distributed a movie before and then they're able to get it into one of the major categories. That almost never happens. Tatum is big enough and well known enough that he could do his own campaign, but I don't know if there were rules put in against that. I can't remember what the rules were that could prevent him from doing his own screenings and going out there and promoting the movie. But for a smaller movie like Josephine, you really need a better distributor that can push that through. So then the 3 wild cards to me from the 5 frontrunners we're talking about, the 3 real wild cards are Willem Dafoe in Werewolf, because this could be this year's here's Amy Madigan. Nobody last year, nobody was predicting her at this time last year, and she wound up winning the whole thing. And this could be that. Willem Dafoe is a very well-respected actor. He's never won an Academy Award before. This could be a big, juicy part. If it's anything like his role in The Lighthouse, I think some people are not predicting him because, number one, they assume the Academy has a bias against horror movies. Well, we saw Michael B. Jordan and Amy Madigan win last year, so that is no longer true. And number two, they think, well, he wasn't nominated in The Lighthouse. There was a lot of conversations, and he probably got close to it, but didn't get nominated. The same thing could happen again. Not necessarily, because that kind of a snub would make them more likely to correct it, especially if the movie itself is bigger, which Werewolf will be. The Lighthouse was only really being thought of for him and supporting actor, and then the beautiful black and white cinematography. Werewolf could be a more general awards contender. It wouldn't shock me at all if he got in there. Then you have David Oyelowo for Clarissa, which this is an actor who's never been nominated before. He's been snubbed several times, most notably with Selma and Martin Luther King Jr. He is overdue for a nomination, and there's no actors of color Best Supporting Actor race other than him. It's very unusual that there are no black actors whatsoever in the acting categories. It almost never happens. I think actress and supporting actress have a better chance of seeing that. If Best Actor doesn't have a black male contender, which I don't think it will this year, would that push him through for supporting actor? Yeah, it definitely could, because I could see him definitely being nominated. And then Robert Pattinson. With Pattinson, you have him in two big, juicy, villainous roles in supporting actor. The bad guy or main bad guy in Dune Part 3 and The Odyssey. Now, I don't want to do this thing where I'm like, okay, he might be nominated twice because that's not possible. I don't think that'll happen. Probably a consensus will emerge towards the end of the year about which of these performances is stronger, and that'll push him through for one or the other. I think it'll be one or the other, not both. Because the supporting actor race, who do I like the most? John Goodman. What's the argument for him for Digger? Well, he's never been nominated before. You're hearing this with like Channing Tatum and David Oyelowo. They've never been nominated before. It wouldn't totally make sense to push an actor through for two separate performances when there's slots that need to go to other people. So out of those 8 strong contenders, it wouldn't shock me if it was literally any combination of that. I think John Goodman will get through for Digger because there's going to be a huge push to finally get him into the Oscar conversation. Jeremy Strong for The Social Network. Strong was able to do something similar with Roy Cohn and The Apprentice a couple years ago, and Hollywood wants to say something about tech. They have a desire to talk about this. I think Paul Giamatti for No One Cares, because Giamatti is very well respected. People like him a lot. If this is a good part for him, then it may get him in. And then it's really a crapshoot. I could see Sam Rockwell being snubbed because this is a very similar part to characters that he's played before. People might think, well, he's already won, and a lot of other people we're looking at, they've never even been nominated. Why would we nominate him again for a role where he's kind of doing similar territory to what he's done before? Steve Buscemi from Wild Horse 9 may be more likely just because he's never been nominated. He's a legendary actor. But for these last 2 slots, after Goodman, Strong, and Giamatti, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to say Willem Dafoe in Werewolf and Robert Pattinson for something. I don't even want to speculate if it'll be more likely to be Dune 3 or The Odyssey. It could be either one. It wouldn't shock me at all if Oyelowo for Clarissa and anybody from Wild Horse 9 got in there and proved me wrong. That would shock me, but those are the ones that I'm going to go with. When we get down to Best Supporting Actress is always the one where it looks like they took 2 nominees and they just threw darts at a board. 2 nominees always just feel random or plucked out of a hat. Last year, as I mentioned, Wunmi Mosaku had literally been seen in Sinners. Nobody was predicting her. I don't think Sentimental Value was even considered that it could get 2 of its supporting actresses through. Amy Madigan in Weapons, if you'd have predicted her and put her name down, people would have laughed at you. They would have said, that's a joke. I can't even believe you're putting that down. I don't know if anybody other than Tiana Taylor would have even been considered seriously at this point last year. So that's 1 person out of 5. I saw Ariana Grande for Wicked for Good. She came up as the front runner constantly. Obviously, that didn't happen. So that being said, this is the toughest race, and there's a couple that I like, and then there's 3 that are just sort of plucked out of a hat. They're just sort of random, and I'm just picking them for whatever reason. The one I like the most is Tao Okamoto for All of a Sudden, because again, if you're bullish on the movie itself, if you like its chances, and it's 3 hours long, you got to figure that's a big supporting performance. There's probably a lot for her to do, and as I mentioned, it's kind of unusual for the Oscars to be all white and to have all white winners. If there's a possibility possibility for an actor of color to have a win this year, it's probably Best Supporting Actress. And Tao Akamoto has a part that stands out to me, so I'm going to put her down as my number one prediction. Number two, Anne Hathaway in The Odyssey. This feels like it could be both deserved for The Odyssey and also to acknowledge that she's having a hell of a year. If you look at her year, The Devil Wears Prada 2, The End of Oak Street, Verity, Mother Mary, probably 5 more movies that I'm forgetting about. She's in a lot of movies. This is going to keep her in the conversation, and if you believe The Odyssey is the frontrunner for Best Picture, I can't think of any reason she wouldn't be nominated. And if you look at the saturation of European actresses in Best Actress, they might be like, we need an all-American favorite that people like and put that in there, which is behind the thinking for my third place pick, which is Scarlett Johansson for Paper Tiger. She could be put in the Best Actress category. We don't know yet. Will she be put in Best Actress or Supporting Actress? I think Supporting Actress makes more sense because I think she can be nominated. Actress is more of a risk, and they may see what happened to Chase Infinity last year. Chase Infinity could have gone Supporting or Main Actress. She went Main Actress to help Tiana Taylor win for Best Supporting Actress. Taylor did not win Best Supporting Actress, and Chase wasn't even nominated for Best Actress. Anybody sees that, they're like, wait a minute, Zoe Saldana can be Best Supporting Actress. They commit category fraud all the time, and it works. It works almost every time that they do it by moving a main actor down to supporting. I can't think of any reason they wouldn't do that for Scarlett, and I think they'll look at that calculation and think the same thing. Scarlett Johansson's a very popular actress. She's never won an Academy Award before, and they may think, we've got a lot of obscure European nominees up in the top actress category. We need somebody big, American movie star. People will actually watch this ceremony. It plays a big role in it, more than people think. Online, people think that means nothing. It matters. I like those 3, and then for 4 and 5, it's random. For 4, I'm going to say Zendaya, and it's the same as Patterson. It could be Dune Part 3, or it could be The Odyssey. This is largely because she's just having a great year overall. You have her lead performance in the drama that's very acclaimed. You have the new Spider-Man movie where she'll have a big part. And to be in 2 Best Picture frontrunners, both The Odyssey and Dune Part 3, I think it puts her name out there. It lets people know who she is. She was snubbed a couple years ago for Challengers. She's never been nominated, but she's a very hot of the moment actress. People really respond to her and have a great feeling for her. I mean, she might be the most sexiest actress alive at this moment. And yeah, I think that matters. I think if people are looking for somebody young and maybe bringing a younger viewership, I think she'll be nominated for one or the other of those movies. Could be Dune Part 3, because I think her role there might be bigger and it might have more weight, but then people say, well, that's a sequel, and The Odyssey, that's the bigger Oscar movie, that's the more sure thing contender, and it could be Wunmi Musako in Sinners type thing, where if she just has like a couple of good scenes, the role doesn't even have to be that strong and get her through. So it could be either one of those. Do I think it'll be both of those? No, I think the consensus will emerge, same as the others, and that there will be something picked. The 5th place could be anybody, and I'm going to pick Elizabeth Debicki in The Adventures of Cliff Booth, mostly because Debicki is respected. She's been in the conversation before for stuff like Widows. She's already won Emmys for playing Princess Diana. I think this is going to be like glamorous type of part. I think it's going to have all eyes on her, and if there's anybody from Cliff Booth that could be nominated for any acting category, it could be her. I saw Variety pick her as not just the early prediction to be nominated, but to win. I don't know why they would do that unless they had read the script. Maybe there's something in that script by Quentin Tarantino that they really like. There's something in there that sticks out to them. Is it enough to win? Probably not, but enough to be nominated? Sure. When you get down to possibilities, there's 50 names you could name. I'm going to rule out Gemma Chan from Josephine for the same exact reasons that I did for Channing Tatum. There's Parker Posey in Wild Horse 9. Her performance over the phone is not going to be enough. I think that's very speculative. People are putting her in there a lot. Just nominating her because she's never been nominated, but she's in like a handful of scenes over the phone. I don't think that's enough for a movie that if I'm not picking the supporting actors from that movie, I don't know why I would pick her. Mariana Di Girolamo in Wild Horse 9. Very possible, but she has not a lot of credits. She doesn't have an extensive filmography. People like to pick an out-of-nowhere actress and put her in there. That seems more likely to go to Tao Akamoto. If you question Searchlight's commitment to Oscar campaigns in general, and you're already kind of on the fence if they can get Wild Horse 9 and Malkovich and director, if they can get all those, it doesn't totally make sense to pick an incredibly unknown actress with not an extensive filmography, and we don't know if the part is that big. She probably has a few great scenes, but is it going to be that big? I don't know. It could happen. And then there's Daisy Edgar Jones in A Place in Hell. If you're not picking Michelle Williams from that movie, it doesn't make sense to pick Edgar Jones from that movie, although it wouldn't surprise me if that went through. Adele in Cry to Heaven. This is going to be one of those that there's there's a lot of support for, and it could happen. But that movie could easily be the Cats of 2026. If that movie comes out and it totally sucks, there's no way anybody can get through, and it'll probably be one of those where there's a lot of online support for it, but it just doesn't happen. And then you get to Sophie Okinodo for Mouse. If there was a sixth place slot other than Girolamo in Wild Horse 9, I know I'm butchering that name. I didn't look it up like I did some of the others, but if there's a sixth place slot other than her, I think it would be Sophie Okinodo and Mouse. I don't like that the distributor is so small, and if people feel that she has a better chance at Clarissa for main actress, then they may not put her name down for supporting. I could see it if they feel like Clarissa is great but not good enough to get through for actress, then she gets through with supporting actress, where it's just kind of like one or the other, but maybe not both. So if she falls apart for main actress in Clarissa, it wouldn't shock me if Sophie Okinodo got through on Mouse. But anyway, those are just what I think, and I'm sorry that was so long. I felt like I had to kind of explain it and go into what I was thinking about it. Obviously, the acting categories are more speculative, so if I can get, like, let's say 3 or 4 in each individual category, I'll feel really great about that. The fifth place slot for each of those categories really could go to anything, but what if I did get all of them right? How cool would that be, right? So thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see what happens this January when the nominees are announced, but we'll know kind of between now and then, because a lot of these movies will come out and we'll have a better sense. If there's other categories that there's any interest in seeing me talk about, let me know.